And let me just touch on that a little bit, because we've had an outstanding Freedom of Information Act request on Al Modular for a number of years now, to which we've gotten virtually no response. But I think, Tom, the world that you're describing, I think, would be a good world if it turned out that these investigations were actually made public to some degree. And, I think that it's that irony of more information comes out with respect to traditionally recognized armed conflict than information comes out about the far more controversial, well, let me not talk about controversiality, there's controversy everywhere, but the sort of armed conflicts outside of recognized law of war frameworks, where this is a new potential rule book that this administration is setting. It began with the Bush administration. You've now got 2 terms of a Democratic president putting in place, potentially entrenching a program that, one round of potential pulling back on that was back in 2012, when it looked like Mitt Romney might become president, which apparently led to, or certainly informed, the presidential policy guidance that would have tightened particular standards. And I think all of us should be asking ourselves, and not just in an election year, how would we feel if the next president, whoever he or she may be, is acting under the same rules? Or how does this country respond if Russia, China, or Iran claim the authority to use lethal force using permissive law of war rules outside of the laws of war, and say, we're not going to provide you enough information for there to be a credible outside assessment of whether those strikes were lawful or not? That should give us significant pause, if nothing else.
And trust us, because we have information that you don't have. Right. I think that's the follow-up. I think transparency, I think the theme sort of this conversation has been that transparency under this administration has tended to be the exception rather than the rule. So when there is something of note, so the inadvertent killing of the U.S. and Italian hostage, we had a really remarkable moment of transparency, but it was very short-lived. It was about this particular strike, and even within that announcement, it was still very ambiguous where exactly it took place, the circumstances of the strike itself. It was really just the result and the fact that civilians were killed.
And what did not pass unnoticed was that remarkable transparency was provided for Western white victims, as opposed to the vast majority of people who are not that.
Right, and exactly what I was going to say was that it is the exception, and that we have had from this administration great promises in 2 very significant speeches in 2013 and 2014 promising greater transparency. We had in March Lisa Monaco again promising this greater transparency and that it was imminent, not to abuse the word, but that it was imminent. And so I think there is I don't know if concern or maybe a little bit of disappointment with what was released on Friday, because there's still so much more that we would like to see from this administration in particular to set the program on firmer footing before whoever the next president is. That yes, it's difficult, it's more than just a stroke of the pen, but that if you are putting in place policies and decisions that aren't grounded in something a bit more substantial, there is fear of abuse, not only, I think, less so maybe in this country, but perhaps more so by others internationally using the same rationale.